The big clash of the fearful avoidant and the dismissive avoidant inside a relationship. Leslie Wells, connection coach here. I help individuals grow in their committed relationships to thrive, to be able to heal and repair, and I do that all through an attachment lens. So we look at our attachment lens, we identify our attachment style, our core wounds, and how they are projected onto our partner, how our partner is triggering them. We look at our partner, we understand their attachment style, their attachment wounds, and how all of these things come to play in negative cycles in our relationship that keep us both triggered and unhealthy. If you are unfamiliar with the dismissive avoidant and the fearful avoidant, I have lots of videos on them. Go back and take a look. But essentially, the fearful avoidant has a betrayal wound. Early in childhood, they grew up in a childhood home where there is some sort of trauma. And so they grow up feeling that people and love are unsafe and people are not trustworthy. They go into the world looking into relationships, looking for the other shoe to drop, for people to break their trust, to hurt them, let them down, disappoint them. They are always looking for a betrayal because they have already learned and experienced that love is unsafe and people are untrustworthy. Now, the dismissive avoidant may have had their physical needs met, but they did not get emotional attunement. Their parents were not able to provide that. They did not model that. Whenever they brought emotions up, they were either dismissed, criticized, ridiculed, humiliated, or basically told, go put those away. We don't put them on display. Feelings did not happen in their house. Things were brushed under the rug, dismissed, and never discussed again. So these are the people that typically are not vulnerable and transparent. The dismissive avoidant grows up with an inner defectiveness wound because when they did bring their emotions to a caregiver and they were told, go away with that, we don't express that, we don't deal with that openly, they felt like there was something wrong with them and they were unable to get their emotional needs met. So they had this inner defectiveness wound, a feeling of inherently being broken inside. So they don't want to be seen. In relationships, they avoid conflict, they avoid intimacy, they do not want to be close, commitment spooks them. Because again, if they are to be seen, then they're going to feel like they're going to be rejected because that defectiveness wound is going to be seen. Their partner is going to look at them and their vulnerability and say, oh my goodness, you're broken. I don't want any part of this. And so that's their big fear. So in relationships, they do not want to become enmeshed in the relationship. They strive to keep their autonomy, their independence, and their space. They prefer peace, they prefer harmony, and they do not want to get into the emotional side of things because they don't know what to do with it. They don't know the words to use to express their own emotions. They don't know how to feel their own emotions. They typically suppress them and distract them because they have been taught that emotions are not good and they're not to be displayed. So they suppress them and they distract from them. So they don't know how to hold space for their partner's emotions. So here's the problem. The deep core need of the dismissive avoidant is to not feel criticized or attacked or that inner wound of defectiveness to be triggered. That's their big fear. They also, their big need in a relationship is a lack of conflict, and they want peace and they want harmony and space. So the core need of the fearful avoidant is to be deeply seen, heard, and understood, for someone to truly get who they are and recognize them as a unique, special individual. So the fearful avoidant is always afraid of being betrayed. So they're always looking for proof and evidence. They're very hyper vigilant on whether or not their partner is going to do something to hurt them and break their trust. And they're also looking for evidence in ways that their partner is going to show up well for them. That's why they're always sort of testing their partner subconsciously and moving the goalpost. They want to ensure that their partner is going to show up well for them so that they can get rid of those bad thoughts that their partner is going to hurt them and betray them. So they're always looking for evidence, either to the contrary that their partner is going to betray them, or looking for that betrayal so that they have a heads up and it doesn't catch them by surprise and catch them off guard. So the fearful avoidant is really happy for someone who can predict their needs and predict what they want in a relationship and really attuned to their moods and what they need at the time. So much so that they will often nitpick, start fights, or sort of test their partner to see if their partner will predict what they need and show up well and step in and meet those needs for them without being asked. These are the people a lot of times in a relationship that you'll hear them say, I just want them to show up for me. I don't want to have to ask for what I need. And they do. They really want somebody to understand them so deeply that they show up and they come in and rescue them without them having to ask. And truthfully, in relationships, that is kind of what they tend to do for other people. They're very deep feelers. They're so hypervigilant. They've learned to observe and take data on other people. They hold them under a microscope. So they will get to know you on that level and sense when something's off with you immediately. Now, they don't always show up well in that. They might not always come across and express well when they see something's wrong with you, and they very much personalize that and often draw deeper meaning from it than has to do with the actual situation. But a lot of times, once they learn and they do their work, they are able to recognize when their partner really is off or something's going on with them emotionally, and they will step in and lean into their partner in that way. So that's what they want in return. Now, the problem is the dismissive avoidant has no emotional attunement. They are blind to what people around them need. Literally, there's some really funny TikToks out there where there's one where I can think of where the guy is talking about how, and I wish I could remember the creator, but he's talking about how he will ask for bids for connection, and he comes up and directly says, like, I would love to have a Netflix night where we sit down, we spend some time together, we cuddle up on the couch, versus how his wife actually does her bids for connection. And she's basically in the kitchen banging the pots and pans, trying to get her husband's attention, saying ugly comments that are passive aggressive to get him to lean in. This is very much the way that a fearful avoidant will act. They often won't ask for what they need. But for a dismissive avoidant, they're not going to pick up on these clues. Their emotional attunement is not present. They were never taught that. They were never modeled that. And so they literally, you can come home and have tears in your eyes, and they may not even respond to you or ask what's wrong because they don't know how to. They're afraid of your emotions and you actually dumping that onto them. They don't know what to do with it whenever you do, and they know that. Or they just completely miss all the cues that you're trying to give them. So you can imagine the frustration for the fearful avoidant when they are looking for emotional attunement in a partner and to be deeply seen, heard, and understood and valued and seen for what they need when they need it. And the dismissive avoidant is just completely, absolutely clueless, and so therefore is never able to show up for them in that way. And so they stop with the passive aggressive cues, and they get really big, and they start doing bigger protest behaviors, which ultimately leads to the dismissive avoidant feeling defensive, criticized, not good enough, and attacked, right? Because they're coming with a fight response. And so then the dismissive avoidant is going to be overwhelmed, shut down even further, and then they're going to back away, which of course is going to make the fearful avoidant feel even less seen, heard, and understood, and their needs met. And they're either going to get bigger and keep coming at it in fight response, or they're eventually going to feel hopeless that they're not going to get their needs met and feel so dysregulated that they go into a full shutdown, and then you've got two people that are acting avoidantly. So that is how one way that the dismissive avoidant and the fearful avoidant can very much trigger each other, because their core needs very much clash. So that is how the dismissive avoidant and the fearful avoidant can often trigger one another in relationships.